The rain hammered the windows of the Golden Gate Diner like 1,000 tiny fists, each drop a reminder that San Francisco's summer fog could turn vicious in a heartbeat. Alexander Kane gripped his coffee mug so tight his knuckles bleached white, staring at the man across the booth, Victor Hale, his partner in both boardrooms and bedrooms, the one who'd promised to build an empire with him. "You're serious?" Alexander's voice cracked like thunder, low and lethal. "After everything, you're walking away? With my code? Our code?" Victor's smile was a razor, slicing through the dim diner light. "It was never our anything, Alex. You were the face, I was the brains. And now, I'm taking what's mine." He slid the flash drive across the scarred Formica table, a digital grenade pinned with a smirk. Outside, lightning forked the sky, illuminating the waitress, Lila, with her faded tattoo peeking from her sleeve and eyes sharp as broken glass, who hovered at the counter, wiping it down like she wasn't eavesdropping on the unraveling of two lives. Alexander's laugh was hollow, echoing off the chrome-edged booths where truckers nursed beers and locals nursed grudges. He'd clawed his way from a cramped Queens apartment to this, Kane Tech, a Silicon Valley darling valued at $500 million. Algorithms that predicted market crashes before the suits in New York even blinked. Victor had been the spark, the late-night coder with whiskey breath and hands that mapped Alexander's body like uncharted code. But love in the valley was just another venture. High risk, higher betrayal. "You think you can just ghost me? After the mergers, the parties, the way you whispered my name like it was a prayer." Victor leaned in, his cologne, sandalwood and ambition, cloying in the greasy air. "Prayers don't pay, Alex. And neither do you anymore. That board's sniffing around your personal distractions, your little flings with the interns. Remember, I covered for you. This," he tapped the drive. "This is my severance." He stood, shrugging on his Burberry trench, and sauntered toward the door, the bell jangling like a death knell. Lila materialized at Alexander's elbow before the door even swung shut, her apron dusted with flour from the diner's sad excuse for apple pie. She was in her 40s, lines etched from too many double shifts and not enough sleep, but her gaze held the steel of someone who'd seen tech bros come and go like seasonal fog. "That one's poison. Sugar," she murmured, sliding a fresh napkin under his trembling hand. "Victor's been slinging your secrets like cheap shots at O'Malley's bar. Heard him bragging to some venture vulture last week. Said you'd fold without him. Walk away now, before he guts you." Alexander's head snapped up, rain-streaked windows mirroring the storm in his chest. "You? What? How do you even know him?" Lila had been a fixture here for years, the kind of waitress who remembered your order and your sins, dishing wisdom with her hash browns. She'd flirt harmlessly with Alexander on his rare low days, calling him Mr. Big Shot with a wink that never crossed into territory, professional boundaries in a city that devoured them. "Small world in this town," she said, pouring more coffee, black as his mood. "My brother's a bartender at that dive. Victor's type, they all talk too loud when they're loaded. He's not just stealing your app, Alex. He's selling your soul, emails, prototypes, even those late-night voicemails where you sound half in love, half in hell." Her voice dropped, maternal in its grit. "I've seen enough golden boys crash and burn. You're better than this circus. Cut the wire before it blows." He wanted to argue, to defend the man who'd once traced constellations on his back under starless valley skies. But the flash drive burned a hole in his palm, and Victor's parting shot echoed, "Prayers don't pay." Alexander pocketed it, the weight like lead. Thanks, Lila, for whatever this is. He tossed a 50 on the table, tip enough to cover her shift, and bolted into the downpour, trench coat flapping like broken wings. The drive back to his Pacific Heights mansion blurred through windshield wipers' frantic swipe. Alexander's Tesla hummed silently up the hill, past manicured hedges and gates that whispered old money. Inside, the house was a tomb of glass and steel, floor-to-ceiling windows framing the bay's angry churn, abstract art screaming success from walls that echoed loneliness. He stripped off his soaked clothes, poured a Glenfiddich neat, and slumped onto the leather sectional, the drive's contents a ghost in his pocket. By midnight, paranoia clawed in. Victor's betrayal wasn't just theft, it was erasure. Alexander fired up his laptop, fingers flying over keys, tracing digital breadcrumbs. Victor had been siphoning data for months, subtle, like a lover's lie. Emails to offshore shells, meetings with East Coast sharks. And there, buried in a deleted thread, Alex doesn't suspect. Once we launch, he's done. No loose ends. Sleep evaded him, chased by what-ifs. Dawn crept in, gray and unforgiving, as Alexander dressed for the board meeting, the one where Victor was supposed to pitch their next big thing. Instead, he'd arm himself with truth, or at least the illusion of it. Lila's warning looped like a bad codec, poison. He glanced at the diner receipt in his wallet, her scrawled note on the back. Trust your gut, not your heart. The Canetech headquarters loomed in the valley like a chrome monolith, solar panels glinting under reluctant sun. Alexander arrived early, coffee in hand, face a mask of CEO steel. The boardroom buzzed with VPs in hoodies and khakis, the air thick with oat milk lattes and unspoken ambitions. Victor was late, uncharacteristic, a red flag waving in Alexander's periphery. Then the door swung open, not to Victor's swagger, but to a stranger. Tall, broad-shouldered, with a jaw carved from granite and eyes like smoked quartz, haunted, holding secrets. He wore a simple navy blazer over a white tee, jeans faded from wear, not designer distress. No tie, no pretense. The room hushed as he scanned the faces, landing on Alexander with a weight that pinned him in place. Mr. Kane, the man said, voice low-timbered, laced with East Coast gravel Brooklyn. Maybe. Ethan Reyes. I'm here about Victor Hale. He extended a hand, calloused, real. Alexander shook it, pulse spiking at the contact, warm, steady, unlike the chill of betrayal still clinging to his skin. The board murmured, chairs scraping. And you are? Alexander managed, releasing too slowly. Ethan's lips twitched, not quite a smile. The brother he never mentioned. And the one who's come to clean up his mess. Gasps rippled like aftershocks. Alexander's world tilted, the flash drive suddenly a relic from a nightmare he hadn't woken from. Ethan's arrival wasn't just shock. It was seismic, cracking open fault lines Alexander didn't know ran so deep. Who was this man? Stepping from shadows to upend everything? And why did his touch linger like a promise or a warning? As Ethan took a seat, unfolding a battered leather portfolio, Alexander felt the room's eyes boring in. But it was Ethan's gaze that held him captive, a quiet storm brewing behind those eyes. Lila's words echoed faintly, trust your gut. For the first time that morning, it didn't feel like a curse. The meeting devolved into controlled chaos, questions flying, Victor's absence a gaping void. Ethan laid it out coolly. He'd flown in from New York that morning, tipped off by a mutual contact about Victor's side hustle. "He's not just poaching code," Ethan said, sliding printouts across the polished oak table ledgers, wire transfers, names Alexander recognized from competitor rosters. "He's auctioning your IP to the highest bidder. I have proof. And I have a way to stop him." Alexander leaned forward, the board fading to static. Ethan's hands moved with precision, tracing lines on the docs like a map to buried treasure or a grave. Close, Ethan smelled of clean soap and faint leather, a grounding amid the corporate cologne haze. "Why you?" Alexander asked, voice barely above the projector hum. "What's your stake?" Ethan's eyes darkened, a flicker of something raw: pain, resolve. "Victor's my blood, but he's poisoned the well. Family doesn't mean blind loyalty. You built this from nothing." He tears down. "I couldn't let it stand." He paused, voice softening. "Besides, I followed your work. Tech isn't just apps, it's change. Real shit, not this snake oil Victor peddles. Flattery or truth." Alexander couldn't parse it, not with the adrenaline crash looming. The board voted unanimously: freeze assets, alert lawyers, bring in Ethan as consultant to trace the leaks. Victor was officially persona non grata, his office sealed like a crime scene. As the room emptied, Alexander lingered, Ethan packing his portfolio with deliberate folds. "Coffee?" Alexander offered, gesturing to the executive lounge. "My treat. Least I can do for." "Family drama intervention." Ethan chuckled, a sound like gravel under tires. "Rough, real." "Sure. But only if it's not that valley sludge. Black, strong. Like back home." They ended up on the terrace, overlooking the sprawl of cubicles and code farms, the bay a distant shimmer. Alexander poured from a French press, hands steadier now. "So, Brooklyn boy in the belly of the beast. What brings a Reyes to my doorstep, besides fraternal firefighting?" Ethan sipped, leaning on the railing, wind tousling his dark curls. "Curiosity, mostly. Victor's been radio silent for months. Texts bouncing, calls ghosted. Then this tip drops. My brother's about to tank a good man's life. Figured I'd see for myself." His gaze slid sideways, praising. "You're not what I expected. Most CEOs are. Polished vultures. You look like you actually give a damn." Heat crept up Alexander's neck. Unfamiliar, after years of Victor's calculated charm. "Flattery gets you a second cup. But yeah, I do. Gave up everything for this. Friends, sanity, sleep." Victor was supposed to be the anchor. He laughed bitterly. "Turns out he was the storm." Ethan nodded. "No pity, just understanding. Storms pass. Anchors rust." He set his mug down, turning fully. "Look, I didn't come to play hero. But if you need backup tracing those funds, I'm your guy. Ex-cop, freelance fixer. Pays the bills between gigs. Ex-cop." To fit the quiet vigilance, the way his eyes scanned exits even in a boardroom. Alexander felt a pull, magnetic, toward the stranger who'd crashed his crisis like a lifeline. "Why help a mark like me? You don't owe me shit." "Because I've been the mark," Ethan said simply, voice edged with old scars. "Loved someone who sold me out. Left me bleeding in a warehouse off Flatbush. You're still standing. That's worth fighting for. The air thickened, charged like pre-thunder. Alexander's pulse thrummed, not just from the scotch lingering in his system. Ethan's proximity was a current, drawing him in dangerous, alive. "Stay for dinner," he heard himself say. "My place. We can strategize." Ethan's smile broke then, genuine, crinkling the corners of his eyes. "Strategize. Right. Lead the way, Mr. Kane." As they descended to the garage, Alexander's phone buzzed. "Victor, finally, we need to talk. Alone." He deleted it without reply, the weight lifting like fog burn-off. For the first time in years, the future didn't feel scripted. Felt possible. Raw. And maybe, just maybe, worth the risk. The drive to Pacific Heights wound through twilight's golden haze, Alexander's Tesla slicing the traffic like a scalpel through silk. Ethan rode shotgun, portfolio on his lap, commentary dry as the Napa cabs they passed. "This city's a fever dream," he said, watching a cyclist weave through honking Ubers. "Back in Brooklyn, we'd call this gridlock foreplay." Alexander grinned, the first real one since the diner deluge. "Welcome to the dream, Reyes. Where dreams go to get Ubered." The banter flowed easy, a bomb on betrayal's burn. By the time they crested the hill, the mansion's gates humming open, Ethan had sketched a rough plan. Digital forensics on Victor's trails, backchannel calls to Ethan's network of ex-badges turned PIs. "We nail him quiet," Ethan said, stepping into the foyer. "No headlines. Just justice." The house unfolded around them, open-plan opulence. Kitchen island veined like marble rivers, walls lined with first editions Alexander never cracked. He uncorked a bottle of 18 Cabernet, pouring generous stems. "To loose ends," he toasted, clinking Ethan's glass. Their fingers brushed, a spark that lingered too long, eyes locking over ruby rims. Dinner was takeout from a hole-in-the-wall Thai spot, pad CEW and green curry, eaten cross-legged on the rug before a crackling fireplace. No silver service, no pretense. Alexander craved the normalcy, the way Ethan's laugh rumbled low when he recounted busting a counterfeit ring in Queens. Guy thought he could pass fake Rolexes at a flea market. I clocked him from the falafel stand, sweat like Niagara, hands shaking worse than a junkie's. "You're a natural storyteller," Alexander said, leaning back on elbows, firelight dancing shadows across his face. "Ever think about writing it down? Memoirs of a cyber sleuth." Ethan shrugged, but his eyes warmed. "Nah. Too many ghosts. Besides, stories like that end in bars, not books." He paused, fork midway to mouth. "What about you? Before the billions, what was Alex Kane?" The question hung, intimate as a confession. Alexander swirled his wine, memories surfacing like bubbles. "Jersey kid. Parents split before I hit double digits. Dad was a mechanic, taught me engines before apps. Mom waitressed. Irony, right? Scrape tips for my coding camp tuition. I built my first program at 12, a dumb game where pixels ate each other. Sold it for $50. Felt like godhood." Ethan listened, chin propped on hand. No judgment, just presence. "Sounds like grit." Valley chews that up, spits out drones. "How'd you stay whole?" "Love," Alexander admitted, voice softening. Or what I thought was. Victor. He saw potential, not the mess. Made me believe in us. The words soured on his tongue. Victor's ghost intruding. He set the glass down. Enough therapy. Your turn. Why cop? Ethan's jaw tightened, fire casting hollows in his cheeks. Kid brother syndrome. Victor was the golden boy, charms and schemes. I was the fixer, patching his screw-ups. Joined the force to prove I wasn't just backup. Last bust, partner took a bullet for my blind spot. Quit after. Turns out, family's the hardest collar. Silence settled, heavy with unspoken parallels. Alexander reached out, impulsive, tracing the scar on Ethan's knuckles. Faint white crescent, story untold. You're more than backup, he murmured. You're the damn cavalry. Ethan's breath hitched, hand turning to capture Alexander's, thumb stroking the pulse point. The touch ignited, slow burn inevitable. Careful, Kane. Cavalry charges get messy, but he didn't pull away, and neither did Alexander. The kiss started tentative, lips brushing, testing, then deepened, hungry, hands fisting shirts as they tumbled back onto the rug. It was fire and forgiveness, Ethan's weight grounding Alexander like gravity reclaimed. Clothes shed in a trail to the bedroom, bodies mapping new territories. Ethan's broad chest dusted with dark hair, Alexander's lean frame arching under calloused palms. Whispers wove with gasps, here and like that, and names traded like talismans. In the afterglow, tangled in Egyptian cotton, Ethan traced lazy circles on Alexander's hip. This doesn't fix shit, he said, half apology. Victor's still out there. Alexander nuzzled his neck. Salt and skin. Doesn't have to. Not tonight. Sleep claimed them. Limbs entwined. The bay's distant foghorn a lullaby. Morning cracked with urgency. Emails pinging like alarms. Victor had gone dark. But ripples spread. Stock dips. Whispers in VC chats. Alexander showered. Ethan commandeering the kitchen for eggs and espresso. Domesticity a fragile shield. Plan for today, Ethan said over plates. All business. I hit the streets, old contacts at the ports. See if he's shipping data drives overseas. You lock down the board. Spin it as internal audit. Alexander nodded, stealing a kiss over the counter. Quick. Claiming. And tonight, round 2 strategy session. Ethan's grin was wolfish. Only if you play dirty. The day blurred into war room mode. Kane Tech. Alexander fielded calls. His assistant sharp-eyed Mia, rallying legal like a general. Victor's lawyer's sniffing, she warned. Says it's a misunderstanding. Bullshit meter off the charts. By afternoon, Ethan texted, lead. Warehouse District. Building 17. Meet at 6, pack heat, metaphorically. Alexander's reply, always do. Watch your 6. The warehouse loomed on the Embarcadero's frayed edge, rusting silos against the bay's slate chop. Ethan waited by a chain-link fence, jacket zipped against the chill wind. Bingo, he said, nodding to a side door. Victor sublet space here last month. Shell Corp. My ass. Techs inside, servers, hard drives. He's prepping a data dump. They slipped in. Shadows in the gloom. Crates stacked like tombstones. Air humming with cooling fans. Ethan moved like liquid night, disabling a cam with a pocket jammer. Alexander followed, heart pounding not just from stealth, You do this often? Breaking and entering for breakfast. Perks of the trade. Ethan's whisper brushed his ear, sending shivers unrelated to the draft. They hit pay dirt. A corner office, monitors flickering with Canetech code scrolling like contraband waterfalls. Jackpot. Plug this in. He handed Alexander a thumb drive, their fingers lingering. It'll ghost the lot. Untraceable. As Alexander knelt, jacking in, the door creaked. Footsteps, 2 sets, low voices. Victor's timbre slithered through. Kane sniffing. We move tonight. Burn it after. Ethan yanked Alexander behind a pallet. Bodies pressed flush. Breaths synced to silence. Victor entered with a goon. Burly, tattooed. The kind of muscle money bought cheap. Boss says no loose ends. The goon grunted, hefting a duffel. Victor's laugh was silk over shards. Kane's end is his own making. Greedy prick thought he owned me. He paced, phone to ear. Yeah. Flights booked. Hong Kong by dawn. Tell the buyers. Full suite. Half up front. Alexander's blood boiled, fist clenching. Ethan's hand clamped his wrist. Steady. Wait. They watched Victor pocket a burner, signal the wipe. But the ghost drive hummed, siphoning secrets in the dark. Tension coiled as Victor lingered, scrolling his phone, pausing on a photo. Alexander's face frozen mid-laugh, arm slung over Victor's shoulder at some forgotten gala. Fucking fool, Victor muttered, almost tender. Then, delete. The goon shifted, eyes narrowing at a loose wire. You hear that? Ethan moved, blur of motion, tackling the goon with a muffled thud. Alexander lunged for Victor, drive still plugged, grappling in the dim. You bastard, he snarled, pinning Victor against the desk. Thought you could gut me and ghost? Victor's eyes widened, shock melting to sneer. Alex? Shit. He twisted, elbow cracking Alexander's ribs, pain blooming hot. Ethan subdued the goon with zip ties from his kit, turning just as Victor bolted for the door. Stop! Ethan's shout echoed, but Victor vanished into the stacks. Alexander yanked the drive free, lungs burning, and they gave chase through labyrinth crates, out a loading bay into whipping fog. Sirens wailed distant, someone tripping an alarm. Victor spun at the chain link, cornered rat. You don't get it, he panted, wild-eyed. This was survival. You were suffocating me, your spotlight, your rules. I needed out. Out? By selling my life. Alexander roared, Ethan flanking, a united front. We were partners. Lovers. Or was that the biggest con? Victor's gaze flicked to Ethan, sharpening. Who's the muscle? New boy toy already? Classy. Alex. Venom dripped, but fear undercut it, brother recognizing brother. Ethan stepped forward, voice steel. Game over, Vic. Data's ours. Cops en route. Walk away clean, or we drag you. Victor laughed. Broken. Family first. Huh? Always the Boy Scout. He glanced at Alexander, something fracturing. I loved you. Once. Before the money choked it. Then he vaulted the fence, vanishing into the mist like a bad dream. Sirens crescendoed, blues flashing. Ethan pulled Alexander close, shield against the chaos. You okay? Ribs throbbing, heart shredded. Alexander nodded into his shoulder. Yeah. For the first time in forever, cops swarmed, statements taken under sodium lamps. Victor was ghosted, airport cams later confirming a private jet to parts unknown. But the drive, gold mine backups, buyer lists, proof irrefutable. Caintek stabilized. Board praising Alexander's decisive action. Back at the mansion, Dawn painting the bay rose gold. They collapsed into bed, bruised, bonded. Ethan's fingers ghosted Alexander's ribs. Gentle. That love he mentioned, it wasn't real. Not like this. Alexander kissed him slow, sealing truths. No. This is. But shadows lingered. Victor's escape wasn't end. It was intermission. And in the valley, scores settled slow. Weeks blurred into a fragile normalcy. Alexander's days a grind of depositions and damage control. Nights a sanctuary in Ethan's arms. The fixer had become fixture, commuting from a sublet in the Mission, his duffel half unpacked in Alexander's closet. Mornings started with espresso and strategy. Ethan's PI pals closing nets on Victor's trails, from Macau backrooms to Singapore servers. He's slippery, Ethan admitted one fog-shrouded dawn, scrolling intercepts over toast. But slimy leaves tracks. Alexander watched him, this man who'd stormed his ruins and rebuilt with quiet hands. Ethan's vulnerability peaked in unguarded moments. Scar on his shoulder from that warehouse bust. Story spilled in midnight confessions. Lover turned informant. Bullet meant for Ethan grazing flesh instead. Taught me trust's a luxury, he'd said. Voice rough. Until you. Love bloomed tentative. Then torrential stolen weekends in Big Sur. Hiking redwoods where cell signals died and truths thrived. Alexander opened up. The isolation of success. Hookups masking hollows. Victor's charm a drug masking dependency. You see me, he told Ethan atop a cliffside overlook, Pacific crashing below. Not the logo. Ethan pulled him close. Wind whipping. I see fire. Don't let it bank. Their kiss tasted of salt and salt. Promises etched in sea spray. But betrayals echo-haunted. Victor's digital ghosts surfaced. Leaked memos painting Alexander as tyrant. Whispers in tech rags questioning his stability. Boardroom brows furrowed at his personal consultant. Ethan, now embedded, auditing shadows. Optics, Mia warned. Loyal but pragmatic. He's gold. Boss. But Valley eats outsiders. Alexander waved it off. But doubt gnawed. Lila, his diner confessor, nailed it over pie one rainy lunch. That Reyes boy's eyes light you up, Alex. But fire draws moths. Watch the wings. She was right. Cracks showed in Ethan's armor, late nights on calls, cryptic texts from old contacts. Alexander chalked it to casework. But paranoia, Victor's gift, festered. One evening, returning early from a Napa pitch, he found Ethan in the study, laptop open to encrypted files, not Victor's, but Caintek's crown jewels, the predictive algo, prepped for. What? Working late. Alexander leaned in the door, casual, heart hammering. Ethan startled, screen flicking to a benign spreadsheet. Yeah. Cross-referencing leaks. Vic's clever. Bounced through proxies. He closed the lid. Smile tight. Missed you. Tie sound good. The lie, if lie it was, hung. Acrid as burnt code. Alexander nodded, burying unease in kisses. But sleep that night was fitful. Dreams of double crosses where Ethan's hands turned to Victor's. Climax brewed in a storm of its own. Kaintekka's annual gala loomed, black tie spectacle at the Legion of Honor, overlooking the Golden Gate's jeweled span. Alexander dreaded it, schmoozing sharks, Victor's absence a specter. But Ethan insisted, show strength. We're solid. He looked devastating in borrowed Armani, tailored to his frame, stubble trimmed, eyes smoldering under crystal chandeliers. Alexander, in midnight velvet, couldn't keep hands off, stealing touches amid champagne flutes. You clean up dangerous, he murmured, nuzzling Ethan's ear during a waltz. Dance like no one's watching, Ethan replied, leading with easy grace, bodies sinking like sync drives. But eyes watched. Whispers slithered, Kane's new arm candy, after Hale's vanishing act, a venture capitalist cornered Alexander by the bar. Breath boozy. Heard Hale's spilling tea overseas. And your boys. Connected. Careful. Alex, fixers fix for a fee. Dismissed as envy, but seeds rooted. Later, as fireworks burst over the bay, reds and golds painting the night, Ethan's phone buzzed insistent. He stepped away, voice low. Not now, yeah. I got it. Clean. Alexander, nursing a scotch. Caught fragments. Trust me. No traces. Suspicion ignited. He slipped after, through marble halls to a balcony, fog tendrils curling like doubts. Ethan pocketed the phone, staring at the bridge's lights, shoulders taut. Who was that? Alexander asked, voice sharper than intended. Ethan turned, unflinching. Source. Victor surfaced, in Berlin, pitching to a cartel. Fake IDs. But I pinned him. Then why the secrecy? Alexander pressed. Closing distance. Hurt fueling heat. You've been cagey for days. Those files. What were you really doing? Ethan's jaw clenched. Eyes storm dark. Protecting you. Digging deeper than you know. Vic's not just running. He's rallying old flames. Spinning tales that you're unstable. Paranoid. Bored eats it up. Liar. The word escaped. Venomous. I saw the algo open. Pre-upload. Like Victor's play, but with you pulling strings. Ethan recoiled. Pain flashing raw. Jesus. Alex. You think, after everything, I'm him? That I'd sell you out. He laughed. Bitter. Check the logs. I was hardening firewalls, not hacking. But go on. Believe the ghosts. Alexander's chest caved. Regret instant. Ethan. But Ethan brushed past, coat swirling, leaving him alone with fireworks' hollow booms. The gala's after-party throbbed on, but Alexander ghosted early, cab back to the mansion a blur of neon regret. He poured bourbon, replaying the fight, his accusation a mirror to Victor's knife. Hours ticked, Ethan unreturning. Panic clawed. What if he's gone? What if I push too far? Dawn grayed the windows when keys scratched the lock. Ethan entered, disheveled, jacket rumpled, eyes red-rimmed. Not from drink, from vigil. Berlin was a feint, he said, dropping a folder on the island. Victor's here. In the city. Holed up with a burner crew, planning one last hit. Ransomware on Kaintek. Timed for market open. Alexander surged up. Relief warring shame. How? Tracked his phone. Drove all night. Ethan's voice cracked. But before we end this, we end us? No. I get the fear, God. I do. Lost too much to doubt. But I'm not him. I'm yours. Tears pricked Alexander's eyes, arms pulling Ethan close. I'm sorry. Idiot. Terrified of losing you before I even have you. Forgiven. Ethan's kiss was fierce. Forgiving. Bodies crashing together in a tangle of need and absolution. They made love on the rug. Slow and shattering. Apologies whispered against skin. Trust rebuilt stroke by stroke. Afterward, foreheads pressed. Ethan murmured, "We take him down together. Partners. For real." The plan coalesced over coffee. Ethan's contacts for surveillance. Alexander's access for bait. Victor's lair? A derelict startup flop in Soma. Ghosts of failed unicorns. They geared up, Ethan with his kit. Alexander with a concealed recorder. Hearts synced in resolve. Twilight fell as they approached. City pulse fading to industrial hum. The building squatted like a concrete crypt. Graffiti tags screaming obsolescence. Ethan picked the lock, silent as sin, and they ascended creaking stairs, air thick with dust and deceit. Voices filtered from the top floor, Victor's, oily, accomplices, gruff. Peering through a cracked door, monitors aglow, code compiling for chaos. Victor paced, phone glued to ear. Kane's gala gaff? Perfect. He's cracking, board'll oust him tomorrow. We dropped the worm at 9 a.m. Full payout. Alexander's blood iced. Ethan squeezed his hand. Steady, and they crept closer. Recorder whirring soft. Then, boot scuff. A goon rounded the corner, spotting them. Intruders. Chaos erupted, shouts, shoves. Ethan disarmed the first with a knee to gut. Alexander dodging a wild swing, grabbing a pipe for leverage. Victor burst out, eyes bulging. You, with him. Biddle flew, gaze raking Ethan. Brooklyn's finest. Crashing my party? Family reunions a bitch. Ethan advanced, unyielding. End it, Vic. Walk, or we cuff you pretty. Victor sneered, backing toward a server rack. You always were the moral mule. Think you saved him? Kane's poison. Charmed me, then chained. This, he gestured the setup. Liberation. Alexander lunged, tackling Victor mid-rant. They grappled, rolling across grit-strewn floor, fists, curses. Years of love turned lethal. Victor's knee connected with Alexander's gut. Wind knocked out. You were mine, Victor hissed, straddling, hands to throat. Not this thugs. Vision spotting. Alexander choked. Wrong. Always. Was. Ethan hauled Victor off, slamming him against wall. Zip ties biting wrists. Enough. Sirens wailed. Ethan's call paying off. Cops swarmed. Victor dragged out snarling curses. You'll regret this. Blood. But cuffed. Collared. In the aftermath, warehouse reeking of sweat and surrender, Alexander sagged against Ethan. It's over. Not yet. Ethan's voice was grave, holding up Victor's phone, unlocked in the fray. A text. Time-stamped gala night. Tell Kane the truth. Or I do. Alexander froze, pieces slotting. That call. You were warning him off? About us? Ethan nodded, weary. He reached out pre-gala, taunting, fishing for dirt. I told him to back off, that you're done with games. That we're real. Shame colored his cheeks. Hid it to protect you. Stupid. Relief flooded, chasing shadows. Alexander cupped his face, kissing fierce. No secrets. From now. Promise. Ethan's arms wrapped tight. Anchor in the storm. Dawn broke as they drove home. Victor's empire crumbling in rearview. Servers seized. Buyers spooked. Tech vindicated. But victory tasted bittersweet. Betrayal's scar would linger, tattoo on the soul. The fallout cascaded like dominoes in a valley wind. Victor's arraignment made headlines. Tech tycoon nabbed in ransomware sting. But Alexander quashed the personal barbs, lawyering up NDAs like armor. Tech rebounded, stock spiking on the fortified future narrative. Board toasting Alexander's resilience over view in the penthouse. To unbreakable code, the chairwoman purred, clinking flutes. And unbreakable men. Ethan demurred the spotlight, preferring shadows, consultant contract extended. But his heart tugged east. Brooklyn's calling. He confessed one crisp October eve. Leaves skittering Nob Hill streets like fleeing secrets. They walked arm-in-linked, scarves against chill. Golden Gate a rust-red silhouette. Ma's not getting younger. And you've got this locked now. No boogeyman under the bed. Alexander halted under a gas lamp's glow. Heart lurching. Stay. We build something real here. No more ghosts. His hand found Ethan's. Thumb tracing knuckles. I love you. Cliché as hell. But true. Ethan's eyes softened. But conflict brewed. Love you too. Alex. Mad. Stupid love. But roots. They're deep. I fixed your storm. Now fix mine? Come visit. Hell. Move me out your jet. My bags. Tempting. But Alexander saw the pull, family's gravity. Brooklyn's grit calling home the fixer. One condition, he said, pulling Ethan into a doorway shelter. We don't drift. Weekly flights. FaceTime foreplay. You're my anchor. Their kiss sealed it. Hungry against brick. Passers-by blurring to irrelevance. But doubt's whisper persisted. Distance devours. Ethan jetted east 2 weeks later. Sublet surrendered. Duffel lighter. Alexander drove him to SFO. Fog cloaking the runways like reluctance. Call when you land, he said, stealing one last kiss in the Tesla's hush. And don't charm any firefighters en route. Ethan laughed. Boarding pass crinkling. Only you, Kane. Promise. The apartment echoed post-departure. Ethan's coffee mug on the counter. A half-read Grisham on the nightstand. Ghosts of touch in tangled sheets. Alexander dove into work. Launching a philanthropy arm. Tech gives back. Coding camps for underprivileged kids. Echoing his Jersey youth. Lila beamed at the diner. Pie slice gratis. Proud of you. Big shot. Reyes lit that spark. Don't let it flicker. Nights, though, were voids. Calls bridged miles. Ethan's voice gravelly over spotty Wi-Fi. Tales of Coney boardwalks and Ma's lasagna. She grills you next visit, he'd tease. Wants grandkids. Stat. Hold the stork, Alexander quipped. But longing ached. Victor's trial loomed. December. Federal courthouse in Oakland. A specter demanding presence. It hit mid-November. Rain lashing windows like recriminations. Alexander scrolled news. Hale pleads guilty. Embezzlement. Theft. Conspiracy. But buried in the obit-style profile. A sidebar on Ethan. Key witness. Reyes. Disgraced NYPD vet. Ties to Hale family. Photos. Young Ethan in blues, arm around a smirking Victor at a precinct picnic. Caption. Blood bonds. From badge to betrayal? Stomach dropping. Alexander dug deeper. Forums. Rags. Dirt-digging sites. Whispers. Ethan's quit wasn't clean. Internal affairs probe. Dismissed but stained. Informant lover. Compromised integrity. And Victor's pre-arrest call? Not warning, negotiation. Plea for leniency. Brother to brother. No. Couldn't be. But the seed sprouted. Watered by isolation. He fired off a text. Saw the article. We need to talk. Soon. Ethan's reply lagged. It's spin. Flying out tomorrow. Trust me. Trust. The word mocked. Victor's echo. Alexander paced the mansion. Bourbon burning throat. Memories fracturing. Ethan's scars. Confessions, had they been bait? The gala secrecy. The algo harden. Smoke for mirrors? Ethan arrived at dusk. Cab idling outside. Face drawn under the portico lights. Alex. He stepped in. Arms open. But Alexander held back. Folder of printouts thrust forward. Explain. Voice steel. But cracking. The probe. The plea deal. You bargained for him? After swearing blood over. Ethan's face paled. Scanning pages. Goddamn leaks. He sank onto the sectional. Head in hands. Affairs probe was bullshit. My ex fed bad intel. Got caught. Cleared. But badge gone. Victor? Yeah. I visited him in holding. Once. To say goodbye for good. No deals. Just closure. Alexander's laugh was shards. Closure? Or cover? You hit it. Like everything. I'm done being played. Played. Ethan surged up. Eyes blazing. I flew across country to bury this. For us. Hurt ward fury. Victor's poison infected you. Paranoia his parting gift. If you can't see me, us, past his shadow, then yeah, maybe we're done. The words landed like gut punches. Alexander reeling. Then go. Fix your family. Leave me to mine. Ethan's gaze shattered. Love to loss in a breath. He grabbed his duffel. Door slamming echo. The cab's taillights faded into fog, taking Alexander's heart with them. Days bled to weeks. Trial a farce Alexander endured solo, Victor in orange. As dull. Plea bargain shaving years. Sorry. He mouthed across the courtroom. But Alexander turned away. Recorder's evidence his only witness. Lila found him post-verdict at the diner. Rain-sodden. Nursing black coffee. Heartbreak's a bitch, she said. Sliding pie. But Reyes? He was real. Call him fool. Pride walled him. But nights cracked it, voicemails unsent. I miss you deleted. Christmas loomed. Valley decked in tacky lights. Mansion a mausoleum. Ethan's silence screamed. Over. New Year's Eve shattered it. A knock. Persistent. Frantic. Alexander yanked the door. Bourbon-fueled haze sharpening to shock. Ethan. Snow-dusted from a red-eye. Duffel at feet. Couldn't stay away, he rasped. Voice breaking. Brooklyn's home. But you're home. Alexander's resolve crumbled. Pulling him in wet coat. Desperate kiss. Apologies tumbling. I doubted. Feared. But I love you. Flaws. Files. All. Forgive. Ethan's whisper against lips. Always, they tumbled to the rug, fire forgotten, reclaiming in frenzy, slow, then savage, bodies affirming what words fumbled. Dawn found them entwined. Ethan's ring box on the pillow, simple platinum, engraved no ghosts. "Marry me?" he murmured, sleepy-eyed. "Here. Or Brooklyn. Wherever." Tears pricked. Yes. Everywhere. But Victor's shadow, though caged, lingered. A trial epilogue. Letter smuggled via lawyer. "You won. But Reyes? Watch him. Blood's thicker." Alexander burned it. Ashes to wind. Trust, fragile rebuilt, would hold. Spring unfurled. Wedding small, Lila officiating in a backyard ceremony. Mia and bored cronies toasting under string lights. Vows exchanged. In storms and code. "I choose you." Honeymoon in Big Sur. Redwoods whispering absolution. Yet humanism's thread wove deeper. Alexander's camps thrived. Kids coding dreams from nothing. Ethan consulted part-time, but volunteered mentoring at-risk youth, fixing more than tech. "Redemption's a group project," he'd say, hand in Alexander's. One evening, Bay Bridge aglow, they stood on the terrace, rings glinting, scars faded. "Think Victor's reformed?" Alexander mused, half joking. Ethan snorted. "Doubt it. But us? We're the rewrite. Love, in the end, wasn't code, unbreakable, but human, bendable, beautiful in breaks. Years folded like well-worn code, seamless in their evolution. Caintech morphed under Alexander's steady hand, now a hybrid beast, profit laced with purpose, AI for climate models, apps bridging urban divides. Ethan, ever the shadow architect, consulted from a home office overlooking the bay, his PI firm a side hustle feeding pro bono cases. "Fixing the world's cheaper than therapy," he'd quip, but his eyes held the truth. Purpose patched the past. Their life wove domestic poetry. Mornings with Ethan's pancakes, lumpy, loved. Evenings walking Chrissy Field. Dog a rescue mutt named Bite, tugging leashes. Friends multiplied. Lila, retired to a cottage in Marin, dispensing wisdom via Zoom. Mia, godmother in waiting to the family they pondered. Kids, Alexander teased one sunset, toes in sand. Or just more code? Ethan's grin crinkled. Both. But yours first, brown eyes. Stubborn streak. Intimacy deepened. Not faded. Anniversaries marked with redwood hikes. Bodies knowing each other's rhythms like favorite playlists. Sex was sacrament. Lazy Sundays tangled. Urgent after boardroom wins. Tender in illness's grip. Ethan's flu that winter. Alexander nursing with broth and banter. "You're stuck with me," Alexander whispered, spooning fever-damp curls. "Vows or viruses? Wouldn't trade," Ethan murmured, hand over heart. Conflict, inevitable, reared gentle now, not betrayal's blaze, but life's embers. Ethan's ma passed quietly, Brooklyn funeral a tear-streaked pilgrimage. Alexander held him in the airport motel, rocking through sobs. "She loved you," he soothed. "Saw the man I do. Miss her fire," Ethan choked. "Like yours, back home." Grief morphed to legacy. Ethan funding a youth center in her name, Alexander coding its virtual wing. Humanism bloomed, axe rippling, mending what Victor shattered. The ghost resurfaced on a muggy July eve, 5 years post-trial. Alexander's phone buzzed. Unknown number. Victor's voice. Reedy from prison atrophy. Parole hearing tomorrow. Thought you'd want closure. Alexander's grip tightened. Ethan glancing from grill smoke. Why now? Victor's laugh. Hollow. Time. Therapy. Turns out, you're right. Love's not transaction. I was broken before you. Pause. Ragged. Reyes? Tell him. Sorry. For the blood I spilled. Click. Alexander stared at the bay. Waves philosophical. He called. Parole. Apology tour. Ethan set tongs down. Face unreadable. And forgive. Alexander echoed their vows. Not forget. But, yeah. For us. Ethan nodded, pulling him close. Burger forgotten. Human. Huh? Even villains evolve. Parole granted, supervised. Low profile. Victor vanished to Reno. Whispers of a coding co-op for ex-cons. No contact. But Alexander mailed a book. The Art of Starting Over. No note. Just trust in redemption's code. Their own milestone-crested autumnal. Adoption papers for Luca, a wiry 10-year-old from the camps. Eyes wide with wonder at the mansion's views. This real? He asked. Backpack clutched. Real as us, Ethan said, ruffling hair. Alexander knelt, heart full. Family's what we build. Bite included. Luca's grin cracked skies. Nights. Bedtime stories wove tales, not of tycoons and traitors, but fixers and dreamers. Once, a man lost his way in fog, but found light in another's hand. Climax. In quiet reflection. Was this not storm's peak, but calm's depth? One eve, Luca asleep, they danced in the kitchen, slow sway to Coltrane, wine loosening limbs. Regrets, Alexander murmured, cheek to Ethan's. None. Ethan's hand spanned his back. Grounding. You, Valley King, Brooklyn heart, worth every scar, every one, kiss deepened, timeless. Dawn's light filtered, gilding rings, dog snoring soft. Lila called later, heard about the kid. Proud don't cover it. You two, proof love wins. It did not flawless, but fierce. Dramatic in devotion, emotional in edges, romantic in routines, humanistic in healing. America's promise, etched in fog and fire, two men, mended, moving forward. In the end, the waitress's warning echoed faint. Prologue to grace, trust your gut. Alexander had. And it led home.